Hello, good morning, students. Please subscribe the channel, drop a like, share, and comment. This is Shree Vishnu Art Press Publications, exercise number 9 and 10 on the speed of 90 words per minute. Start. Let us now examine whether a contractor engaged to execute a particular work can file a suit for accounts against the employer in regard to payment for the work done. Such a right is not created or recognized by any statute. The independent contractor is not an agent of the employer, nor is the employer in the position of a trustee with reference to the independent contractor. Can the claim be supported in equity by stating that where the relationship is such that rendition of accounts is the only relief which will enable the contractor to satisfactorily assert his legal right? A contractor who is engaged to execute a work is expected to maintain his own accounts. At all events, there is no bar for a contractor to keep an account of the work done, even where the contract between the employer and independent contractor may provide for payment on the basis of measurements to be recorded by the employer. Nothing prevents the contractor from measuring the work done by him and then suing for the value of the work done. The contractor may also demand joint measurements to determine the quantum of work done. If the employer for some reason does not cooperate or prevents the contractor from taking a physical measurements, the contractor can seek appropriate legal remedy which will enable him to take measurements or to secure the information from the measurement book in the custody of the employer. Therefore, either the fact that the measurement book is maintained by the employer or the fact that the contractor does not possess the exact measurements will not entitle the contractor to file a suit for rendition of accounts against the employer. A careful reading of section 149 shows that it would apply only in respect of the court fee payable at the time of institution of the suit. If the court fee due on the plaint when instituted is not paid wholly or partly by the person instituting the suit, the court, in its discretion, may allow him to pay the court fee or deficit court fee within the period fixed by it. Section 149 has no application where the court fee due on the plaint as per the valuation of the suit is fully paid, but subsequently it is found that a larger amount is due to the plaintiff. For example, if the plaintiff values the suit at rupees 2 lakhs and the court fee payable is rupees 20,000, and the plaintiff pays a court fee of rupees 10,000 on his request, time for payment of balance of rupees 10,000 can be extended by the court at its discretion under section 149 CPC. But where the claim was rupees 2 lakhs and full court fee of rupees 2 lakhs was paid at the time of institution of the suit, the question of permitting the plaintiff to pay deficit court fee at that stage does not arise, as no court fee becomes payable at that stage. Challenge in this appeal is the judgment of the learned single judge of the Patna High Court, holding that the appellants were not entitled to a decree for specific performance of contract. In a second appeal filed by the respondent, the judgment and decree of the trial court, as affirmed by the first appellate court, were reversed and the suit of the plaintiff was dismissed. Originally, the suit was filed by the husband of appellant number 1. After death of appellant number 1, his legal heirs were substituted. The High Court proceeded on the basis that the plaintiff had not proved that he was ready and willing to perform his part of the contract. There was neither pleading nor evidence was tendered in terms of requirement of Section 16C of the Specific Relief Act 1963. Learned counsel for the appellants highlighted as to how the judgment of the High Court suffers from various infirmities both factually and on principle of law. None appears for the respondent, though she was represented by a counsel who did not appear on several dates of hearing and also is not present today. The High Court recorded findings to the effect that there were no specific averments in the pleadings, that the plaintiff was ready and willing to perform his part of the contract, and also no evidence was adduced in this regard. As rightly pointed out by learned counsel for the appellants, the findings are contrary to the materials on record. As noted by the first appellate court in various paragraphs of the plaint, more particularly paragraphs 18 and 22, specific averments regarding readiness and willingness of the plaintiff to perform his part of the contract have been made. Additionally, the plaintiff, who was examined as PW9, has categorically stated that he had gone to tender the money, that is the consideration, to the defendant, who was not agreeable to return the sale deeds, and therefore the only course left open to the plaintiff was to file a suit. On this ground alone, the judgment of the High Court is vulnerable. Another factor which appears to have weighed with the High Court is that even though 1 month time was granted by the trial court to the plaintiff to deposit a sum of rupees 1500. This was not done. This again is a finding contrary to the materials on record. There can be no quarrel with the proposition that in a suit for specific performance of the contract, the plaintiff must prove that he was ready and willing to perform his part of the contract continuously between the date of the contract and the date of hearing of the suit. But the finding that the plaintiff has not proved his capacity to perform his part of the contract, as he was not even ready to deposit the money in terms of the trial court's order, is factually wrong. It appears that no such plea was raised by the defendant before the first appellate court.